What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to GTA Online, and in this video I will be going over the recently added Declasse Vigero ZX, which is probably the first new Camaro we actually have in the game finally. I would say many players have probably been waiting for this vehicle to be added. I try to get mine as close to a ZL1 as possible in real life because I do think they made this thing very close to the actual Camaro. And if you guys are interested in how I customize my vehicle here, I will have that timestamped at the end of the video as well. So I have to admit, I am really digging this vehicle for the most part. Now, it might not be the fastest thing in the game, to be honest, but it does look really good for that matter, and I do think it is pretty dang fun to drive. But anyway, let's go do an outside look of the new ZX here, and then I definitely want to take this thing on a nice little test drive around the city to see how it might perform. And we all know the bumps around the city are probably going to make this car a lot faster. And then after that, I also want to take this vehicle on a quick top speed test by the tunnel just to see what it can actually get to on flat ground. So now moving over to the outside view of the ZX here. Now I did end up opening all the doors on this vehicle just to see how it might actually look. As you guys will also see, the engine's going to have some nice detail to it as well, basically looking like, well, many of the other muscle cars in the game for that matter. I will also show the interior here in a second, but I have to admit, it does look pretty decent for the most part in there. It looks like they did put some extra detail in the interior of this vehicle. Then we're obviously going to have the trunk back here, which you really cannot see all that well because it's kind of dark with the shadow of that. I think a lot of players are really going to like this car as well because I think Rockstar did a great job with the design of this vehicle. I mean, it looks very close to the actual ZL1, which is kind of crazy. I really do think Rockstar is getting very close at many of these vehicle designs now, but I do think a lot of players are going to like that tremendously because this thing does look great. Now, the biggest question is this car going to be pretty fast to drive around? And, well, we all know how the speed logic of GTA can actually be sometimes, where some of the cars might look really good, but unfortunately do not perform all that well. But luckily, most of the vehicles do around 110 to 120, so you could pretty much have a lot of fun with them around. So at least the vehicles are going to feel pretty dang fast for the most part, but now let's take a look at the interior. So I would say the first-person view of the ZX really doesn't look all that bad compared to many of the other vehicle interiors we have in the game. I know a lot of players probably aren't too happy with many of the interiors, but luckily the one in the ZX here doesn't actually look all that bad. We have the odometer there on the right with the RPM reader. Then we also have the digital dash in the middle, which obviously many of the new modern cars do have that, which will be pretty nice trying to find out the actual speed of this vehicle as well. One thing I also noticed about the ZX is the engine sound of this vehicle is probably going to be very familiar to many players. So I actually decided to let the time pass by a little bit because I wanted to see how the Camaro looks at nighttime, and I'm honestly not disappointed. Besides the scratch I have on this vehicle when I did drive off the other side over here and I did hit the wall because this turn is super tight. But let's see how this vehicle is going to drive around the city now. So I've always wondered, by the way, guys, do you prefer the Challenger or the Camaro in real life? I feel like it's like very mixed, or like you might like one more than the other. Personally, I'm a fan of both vehicles. I don't think I'd ever own one in real life, but I do like them both a lot. I think they're awesome. I really do love muscle cars, and knowing that, you know, muscle cars are probably going to be going away soon is pretty dang upsetting, but that's another topic for another day. So overall, I have to admit, I think this car is going to be worth the money. Now, unfortunately, if you guys do want to buy this thing, you're going to be looking at over $2 million to actually get it and max it out, which is obviously going to be pretty expensive, but we've been playing GTA for a pretty long time now, and I think we're all pretty aware of how expensive the vehicles are on here now, so expect like the $2 million plus per vehicle. And by the way, this vehicle also can wheelie, which I don't think you'd ever see one of these cars actually doing that, but at least it does look pretty cool. Now let's go fly through the city with the Camaro a little bit. Now, I do have to admit one thing though, I'm kind of disappointed with the engine sound of this car. I mean, it basically sounds like all the other vehicles that are in the muscle class for the most part. I do believe the Hellfire and the STX sound pretty similar to this vehicle as well, but the one thing the Hellfire has over this car is that car is only $745,000. This vehicle is well over $2 million to actually max it out, so that is a big difference there. And with this being a muscle car, it's probably not going to handle all that well. And, well, I don't really think a lot of players care too much about that because, you know, this is GTA at the end of the day. You really just want a car to have fun with and mess around with and, you know, maybe do missions or cruise around with your friends and stuff. And I do think this car is going to be perfect for that. I do enjoy driving it around the city, and it does actually seem pretty dang fast when flying around here. So I'm doing 114. I actually haven't went above 125 yet, hitting bumps and all that, so maybe I'm tripping there, but I really don't think that's going to affect this vehicle in any way. I mean, it does handle pretty decently, but let's be honest, a lot of these muscle cars really don't handle all that well in real life anyway. which kind of does make sense for the most part. Most of these cars have like these big V8s in them, and they're made for that insane power and sound, which I think we all love. And the Camaro is definitely no stranger to that. But let's jump onto the highway now. I do have to admit, I actually kind of like the dash in this car. You know, some of the vehicle's interiors are definitely pretty lackluster, but this car really doesn't look all that bad. So on the highway right now, whoa, I'm going 124. Looks like I'm climbing a little bit. I'm kind of impressed now. Okay, maybe I'm wrong, but I was in the city doing about 115. In some areas, the car looked like it wasn't accelerating that well, but being on the highway, I'm doing about 127 now, which is pretty dang impressive. So this is definitely going to be one of the faster muscle cars in the game, which I think every player is going to be happy to see that. But then again, for a car that costs around $2 million, I would say that's probably a thing that should actually happen there. Which I think we have all seen our fair share of vehicles added into GTA Online that are really not worth their prices at all, but I would say the ZX is definitely not going to be in that category. I'm honestly pretty impressed with this vehicle so far, plus it has a good amount of customization as well, so I would say it'll be worth the $2 million, but definitely be ready to spend that on this vehicle. And you can always add it to your collection or maybe go after another muscle car besides the Hellfire, which is kind of insane considering that's almost 3 of these by buying one of those, which is kind of funny, but one thing I have noticed, by the way, is going on this side of the highway on my way to the tunnel, I've been averaging around 126 to 128 miles an hour, which is going to be pretty dang fast for a muscle car in this game, so I would say the ZX is going to be up there for the most part, but why don't we head over to where the tunnel is now and come back the opposite direction and see if we can get around the same top speed that we're getting on this side. So now moving over to the tunnel side for the actual top speed test here, but I have a feeling it's going to be pretty accurate to what I was doing on the other side of the highway there. So I have to admit, guys, I'm pretty impressed with the ZX so far. Now, I know this car is kind of expensive, but then again, most of the vehicles, as I mentioned before, are going to be on the expensive side in GTA now, so I kind of just expect them to be like $2 million or so. But I do like the ZX. This car comes with a lot of customization. The interior looks pretty decent. The engine sound might annoy some people, which I don't really blame you for that, because it's definitely going to be copy and pasted, I believe, there, because I have heard this before. But even right now, I'm doing about 125 miles an hour, so the top speed on the Camaro, which is basically what this actually is around 125 to 128 miles an hour around the highway and or flat ground, which is going to be pretty dang impressive. There are some sports cars and other vehicles that actually struggle to get to that speed, so this might be one of the faster muscle cars in the game. So just from the test driving I have done with the ZX here, I would say a lot of players are going to be really happy with this car. I think this is one of the better cars we have seen in this update so far. Let me know what you guys think about the new ZX in the comments below. Are you happy to finally see a new Camaro in the game? I do think this thing was long overdue to be added into GTA Online, but nonetheless, I will also show you guys the customization I did on this vehicle right now to get it to look just like this.
Makes sense in these troubled times, I guess. Do you need a drink? Bubbles or something? Your cosmetics are on point. Life is hard when you can have anything. Bodywork to match the driver. You got some machine under that bonnet. Making decisions is stressful. If you can think it, I can do it. Think long and hard. There you go. How many cars you got in this garage again? Whatever you desire. Technology and budget permitting. There it is. Girl is looking good. You've got an eye for this stuff. Looks almost as good as you. Do you need a drink? Bubbles or something? Don't she look pretty? Your cosmetics are on point. Stick to the speed limit. I'm joking, of course. I've got that installed for you. Looking good.